And trainers said, we do learning or training. These called training in those days. Now they call it learning. We do training, and you IT folks do knowledge management. You install portals. Well, the fact of the matter is, knowledge management is an umbrella over everything. So trainers are a part of it. But let's just stick to this first simpler model. The trainers are here saying, we deliver training, and it's been proven that our delivery of training substantially improves your performance of your organization. But that's only 10 to 30% of the learning that takes place in your organization. In the knowledge age, we're going to focus on this part, if you can see my hands here, which we will call the true knowledge management areas. The getting people together or enriching their experiences in communities, making the sharing far more productive, doing innovation techniques, doing a whole host of other things that are part of knowledge management, increasing the body of knowledge. And that affects 70-90% of learning. So here's where you have to do one of these Greek deductive logic kinds of things. If we've already proven that a wise investment in the part of the organization that impacts 10 to 30% of their learning gives you a statistically significant result, can you imagine in 5 or 10 years when they go back and do the research on the knowledge management component, which clearly focuses on the 70 to 90% of learning in organizations? I envision that 5 or 10 years from now there'll be another Harvard Business Review article which says either you invest in knowledge management or go down the street and invest in a company who is. It's that clear. That sponge is so big, full of so much potential, just poking a few fingers at it is going to more than justify your expenditures. And those companies who really grab a hold of it and honk onto it are going to outperform their competitors and leave them in the dust. Now, some companies have already done that. So the next slide talks about a few, I picked just 3 from random, but there are 3 that are more likely you'll run across in your own readings. Ford Motor Company, which we've already described, British Petroleum, and Texas Instruments. And I want to show you the extremes of how some projects can be very big and enterprise-wide, and others can be very small and yet extremely effective. So for Ford Motor Company, we described that they started to share knowledge across their 38 assembly plants. And there's a key point here. If you're taking any notes, you might write this down. It's called granularity. If you stayed at the level of 38 assembly plants around the world, Ford Motor Company would not have found much improvement at all. But when you take those 38 assembly plants and decompose them down into the 42 processes or steps that occur along the assembly line, and start comparing how well do people mount wheels in one plant versus another plant, and how well do people drop engine blocks in one plant versus another plant, you now uncover great disparities. And those disparities are the opportunity for knowledge management. Just to give you a sense for it. In mounting wheels, the variation ranged from 1.5 minutes to 8 minutes. Clearly, the people who are doing it 1.5 minutes have something to teach some of the other folks in the other 37 assembly plants. British Petroleum, they used a simple technique called after-action review. I'm going to have a slide. The next slide is going to talk about that. I don't know whether we'll have enough time to spend much time on it. We're actually running pretty close on time here. After-action review is an extremely powerful technique that relatively costs nothing to implement across your organization. British Petroleum found some unique ways to apply after-action review and saves $85 million a year on a very nominal investment annually to do after-action reviews. Texas Instruments, the thing that I have in highlight in blue called alerts. They have 10 fabrication plants around the world, and they found that when in the sterile environments that they need in these fabrication plants, if one of the fabrication plants took in some raw material from a vendor and it turned out there were some impurities in it, then that whole batch would have to be thrown out at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. Why not share that knowledge across the other 9 fabrication plants? So they had a simple alert system. Probably cost nothing. It was just basically press a button on my phone or press a button on my email, and the other 9 receivers at the other 9 fabrication plants would get a message saying, this supplier has just delivered us a batch that has some impurities in it. It was doing things like that that saved Texas Instruments the cost of an 11th fabrication plant. And a fabrication plant costs about $1 billion. So to give you some sense of the magnitude of potential savings in doing some very simple knowledge management techniques, there's 3 of them. I have more on this page, but we don't have time right now to go into them. So we'll move on to the next slide. The next slide is a simple depiction of the steps in an after-action view. The first three, Darius, you can lay out there. Intent. Here's the simple steps of an after-action view. You need to define your intent before you go out to do something. Don't put the last one up. Thank you. What did we hope to accomplish? What was our planned objective? And at the end of that day or the end of that whatever that action is, what really happened? What went wrong or not according to plan? Or what went right or much better than planned? You can learn as much from what went right as you can from what went wrong. And then finally, the gap. What were the differences and why did they occur? Every one of you that's listening to this video probably has had some supervisory experience or has had some supervisory courses. If you looked at those first three steps, you would say, well, that's standard supervision. On Monday morning, I gave somebody an assignment. On Friday afternoon, we're supposed to get together and see how we're doing. And if they're done, I give them another assignment. If they're not done, I need to give them some additional resources. That's traditional supervisory methodology. The fourth step is what makes this so powerful, the after-action review. What did we learn from that experience, and what would we do differently next time? That simple fourth step is what enabled British Petroleum to claim $85 million a year. That simple step is like taking a real squeeze on that sponge and getting $85 million worth of return. What does it cost to do it? Well, it wasn't zero, but compared to $85 million return, it was very low. So their return on investment beat anything else they could do, except pray for higher priced oil, I guess. On the last slide, in the few minutes we have before we're meant to end this second session, I'm going to talk about personal KM. This is a brand new subject. I'm personally very involved in because I think this is a major breakthrough for knowledge management. Many people today are doing knowledge management and doing it incorrectly. In fact, there's some research reports that say that knowledge management is statistically significantly less productive than other business tools and techniques. And that's not because knowledge management doesn't have the potential. That's because knowledge management is not being executed very well. And some of the problem with execution is getting people in the organization to have a new perspective. Sometimes I say, here's the IT perspective, and tomorrow the knowledge age perspective is over maybe 90 degrees from that. You have to get people thinking about the knowledge age. We're no longer in the information age. Sometimes that can be done top down, but that's not trivial. Better to do it bottom up, to give the people in your organization some incentive, some allegiance to, some dedication to, some motivation to get involved in the knowledge age. And that's why I think personal knowledge management is one of those breakthroughs. What is personal knowledge management? It says to an individual, in fact, let me say there might be two types of individuals in an organization. Those individuals are involved in KM as a career. We'll call them practitioners, KM practitioners. Everybody else, the majority of people in your organization, are just professionals at whatever they do. They could be analysts, marketing analysts, human resource folks, production workers, every other aspect of your organization, we'll call them professionals. And this type of a course is geared to everyone else in the organization. It doesn't mean that somebody who's on a career track for knowledge management shouldn't be expert at personal KM. They should be. But what it says is everybody else in your organization sitting at their desk needs to be as good as they can possibly be at the job they're given to do. And the tools and techniques of personal KM makes them the best one in that office. And if they're the best one in that office and then they start spreading that entire department will shine compared to other departments. And you begin a grassroots or bottom-up migration towards where we need to be, and that's the knowledge age.